9:43 p.m. The black leather folder slid across the white tablecloth and stopped directly in front of my water glass. I didn't need to open it to know what was coming. $4,200. The number practically glowed through the leather like an accusation I'd already accepted. Across the table, my mother Sandra was still describing the wine pairing to Gerald. The sommelier said this vintage pairs perfectly with the Wagyu, my brother said, not acknowledging me. He never did. My father Steve signaled for another round. Might as well get the tasting menu desserts, he announced with the careless confidence of a man who's never seen his own credit card statement. Then my mother's voice sliced through the laughter, as casual as discussing the weather. Eva's got this, right? Not a question. A declaration. She didn't even look up from her phone. I sat there in my Target cardigan, the one I'd chosen deliberately because I knew this dinner wasn't about celebrating their anniversary. It never was. I stared at the bill folder, then at my family still toasting to family bonds over something my father said. They genuinely believed I existed to fund their comfort. They mistook my silence for contentment. But silence isn't always acceptance. Sometimes it's just the numbness before the reckoning. What they didn't know, what they never thought to wonder, was that the dependable tax consultant sitting at the corner of the table owned an investment portfolio worth $52 million. I'd been bankrolling their delusions for 9 years, one quiet wire transfer at a time. And tonight, as my hand touched that leather folder, something inside me finally snapped. Not loudly, quietly, like a wire breaking, like a door locking, like a spreadsheet being closed for the absolute last time. And what I did next destroyed everything they thought they knew about me. Before I show you exactly how I dismantled their entire world in less than 48 hours, hit that subscribe button. Because what happens next isn't just revenge, it's a masterclass in financial justice. And trust me, you'll want to see how this ends. I paid the bill with my Amex, the black one they'd never seen because I kept it in a separate wallet. The one that doesn't have a preset spending limit. The charge barely registered as a notification on my phone. Tip included, $5,200. Just another Tuesday expense in a life they couldn't begin to comprehend. The drive home took 42 minutes. 42 minutes of my mother's voice on speakerphone talking about the kitchen backsplash she wanted to upgrade. Nothing crazy, Eva. Maybe 15,000? You know how these things add up. I made agreeable sounds while merging onto the highway, my mind already 3 steps ahead, calculating, analyzing, preparing. My apartment was dark when I arrived. Not the lake house they lived in rent-free, the one with the boat dock and the media room. My actual home. A modest 2-bedroom in a building I owned outright, along with the other 47 units generating $63,000 in monthly rental income. I kept my living space deliberately plain. IKEA furniture. Grocery store art. Nothing that would make them ask questions. I dropped my purse on the counter and opened my laptop. The screen illuminated my face in the darkness as I logged into the portfolio management system. The dashboard loaded. $52,347,293. Up $340,000 from last quarter. 18 commercial properties across 4 states. A diversified stock portfolio. Municipal bonds. 3 limited partnerships in medical office buildings. The kingdom I'd built in complete silence while they thought I was just good with numbers. I'd started at 25 with a $47,000 inheritance from my grandmother, the only family member who ever saw me as more than a resource. She left me everything, and I turned it into everything they couldn't imagine. Real estate appreciation, strategic refinancing, tax-advantaged exchanges, compound interest working while they slept in my lake house, dreaming their small dreams on my dime. Every Sunday dinner, every holiday gathering, every crisis phone call, they saw exactly what I let them see. Sensible Eva. Responsible Eva. Eva who wears the same 3 cardigans and drives a 6-year-old Honda. Eva who says yes because that's what family does. They never wondered how a tax consultant afforded to bail them out year after year. They never asked why I could write a check for Gerald's DUI lawyer or cover their property taxes when Dad's business venture failed for the third time. They never asked because they never saw me. Just the function I performed. The checkbook with a heartbeat. I scrolled through the family expense folder on my desktop. Family investments.xlsx, I'd labeled it because calling it what it really was felt too raw. 9 years of records. Every loan that was never repaid. Every emergency that became my responsibility. Every casual assumption that my money was their money, because what else did boring Eva have to spend it on? The spreadsheet told a story my family refused to read. And tonight, staring at that $4,200 dinner charge, I finally understood something crucial. I'd been writing their fantasy with my bank account, and I was the only one who could end the story. I opened the spreadsheet at 11:47 p.m. with a glass of water, and the kind of clarity that only comes after years of willful blindness finally ends. Family investments.xlsx. 18 tabs, color-coded by year, each one a meticulously documented chapter of my own financial martyrdom. The summary tab loaded first. Total outstanding, $312,448. The number sat there in cell B2, formatted in red, because I'd set a conditional rule years ago. Anything over $100,000 turned red. It had been red since 2021. I scrolled to the first entry. March 2016. Dad's consulting business needed startup capital. $8,500. I'll pay you back with interest, honey. 6 months, tops. There was no second entry for repayment. Just another request 4 months later. $3,200 for business cards and a website. Then $6,800 for office equipment. The consulting business dissolved by December. Total recovered, $0. Mom's entry started in 2017. Kitchen renovation, $23,000. An investment in the home, Eva. It'll add value. The home I didn't own and would never inherit, as she'd casually mentioned, was already promised to Gerald in her will. Then the bathroom remodel, $14,500. The new furniture, $8,900. The landscaping project that became my responsibility when their contractor overcharged them by $11,000. Gerald's tab was its own masterpiece of entitlement. Spring 2018, $15,000 for his business opportunity in cryptocurrency. He never mentioned it again after the market crashed. Fall 2019, $7,500 to cover his rent after he quit his job to find himself. Winter 2020, $12,000 for his wedding to Melissa, the marriage that lasted 14 months. Summer 2022, $19,000 because his Tesla needed repairs, and wasn't it crazy how expensive electric cars were to maintain? I clicked through the tabs methodically. Every birthday where I'd given $5,000 checks they cashed within hours. Every Christmas where my gift to the family was paying off their credit card balances. Every crisis that somehow became my financial emergency. Dad's medical bills when he refused to get proper insurance. Mom's dental work because she deserved to feel confident. Gerald's security deposit, his car payment, his whatever he wanted this month. The notes column was particularly devastating to reread. Emergency. Dad's truck broke down. Crisis. Mom's furnace died. Urgent. Gerald's account overdrawn. Every request had been wrapped in urgency, in family obligation, in the unspoken rule that if I had it and they needed it, the transaction was automatic. Not once in 9 years had anyone said the words "pay you back" in present tense. Only past tense promises and future tense somedays. We'll pay you back when the settlement comes through. We'll get you that money when Dad's business takes off. We'll make it right someday. Someday never appeared in my spreadsheet. Just an endless scroll of outgoing transfers, each one representing a moment I chose their approval over my own dignity. $312,448 worth of moments. $312,448 worth of believing that if I just gave enough, they'd finally see me as more than a bank account with a pulse. I saved the file and exhaled slowly. The confession was complete. Now came the reckoning. I pulled my credit report at 12:33 a.m. because something in my father's last voicemail had fell off. Just need you to co-sign something small, sweetheart. Formality, really. I'd said no. I always said no to co-signing. But the way he'd laughed and said no worries too quickly made my stomach turn. The report loaded. 847 credit score. Excellent payment history. And then I saw them. Accounts I'd never opened. Cards I'd never applied for. Credit lines I'd never authorized. Capital One Platinum. Open January 2022. Balance $23,400. I clicked through to the detailed history. Monthly charges at high-end restaurants. Electronic stores. A payment to a luxury car detailer. Gerald's detailer. I knew because he'd posted about it on Instagram, calling it the best investment in vehicle maintenance. Chase Sapphire Reserve. Opened March 2022. Balance $31,200. The statement showed charges at the same stores Gerald frequented. Hey. Whole Foods. That boutique gym downtown where membership cost $400 a month. My name. My social security number. My liability. His spending. Discover Card. American Express Blue. Bank of America Premium Rewards. 5 cards total, all open between January 2022 and August 2023. Combined balance, $89,700. Every single one showed my address, my phone number, my employment information. Perfect applications. Perfect forgeries. But the cards were just the opening act. The real performance was buried on page 3 of the credit report. A home equity line of credit from Western Regional Bank. $68,000 drawn against a property on Lakeshore Drive. The Lake House. The property I owned but never discussed. The deed had my name on it because I'd purchased it in 2019 as an investment, then let them live there because family helps family. I opened my banking app with shaking hands and navigated to the property records. There it was. A HELIC application from November 2023.
Forgette signature.
My actual signature was on file with the bank from the original mortgage, which made the forgery almost perfect. Almost. The letter E in Eva slanted wrong. My father's handwriting bleeding through my brother's careful tracing. The loan proceeds had funded Gerald's Tesla down payment. I could trace every dollar. $45,000 transferred to Tesla Finance on November 18th. The remaining $23,000 split between their home theater renovation and what Dad had called business investments that looked suspiciously like sports betting deposits. I sat back from my laptop and stared at the ceiling. $134,000 in fraudulent credit cards. $68,000 in forged loan proceeds. $202,000 in criminal identity theft, executed by the people who still called me every Sunday to ask how my week had been. The people who'd sat across from me tonight, laughing over Wagyu beef, while carrying my stolen credit in their wallets. They hadn't just exploited my generosity. They'd stolen my identity, used my credit, forged my signature, committed federal crimes while I smiled and paid for dinner and played the role of boring, dependable Eva who existed to make their lives comfortable. The exhaustion I'd felt at dinner was gone. In its place was something cold and surgical and absolutely clear. This wasn't family. This was organized fraud. And I knew exactly what happened to people who committed fraud. I'd spent 9 years preparing their taxes. I knew every consequence, every penalty, every legal remedy. They'd taught me to keep perfect records. Now, those records would teach them about accountability. Rebecca Torres had the kind of office that made people confess things. Floor-to-ceiling windows. Minimalist furniture. A single orchid on her desk that looked expensive to maintain. She specialized in financial fraud and family law, which was apparently a more common intersection than I'd imagined. "Walk me through it," she said, settling behind her desk at 9 a.m. sharp. I'd called at 6:47 that morning. She'd made time by 9 o'clock. That told me everything I needed to know about how serious this was. I laid out the printed credit reports, the HELIC documents, the credit card statements. She reviewed each page with the clinical precision of a surgeon examining x-rays.
No gasps. No dramatic reactions.
Just the occasional note in her legal pad and a tightening around her eyes that suggested she'd seen this before. "Your father had access to your social security number," she said. "Not a question. Since birth, I assume. And your employment history, tax returns, banking information." She tapped the HELIC application. "This level of detail requires intimate knowledge of your financial life. These aren't amateur forgeries. The signature match is sophisticated. The supporting documentation is comprehensive." "He does my parents' taxes," I said quietly. I did their taxes every year. He had copies of everything. Rebecca looked up at me then, and something in her expression shifted. "Ms. Reynolds, your father didn't just forge one signature. He built a parallel financial identity using your credit profile. He knows your account numbers, your banking patterns, your credit limits. He's been studying your financial behavior for years." The words landed like physical blows. Studying. The credit card applications were submitted from different IP addresses over 18 months. That's intentional spacing to avoid triggering fraud alerts. The HELIC was timed perfectly with your credit score peak. Someone was monitoring your credit. Actively. Strategically. She leaned forward. This was an opportunity. This was planning. I thought about every tax season. Every year I'd sat at their dining room table with my laptop, organizing their receipts, explaining deductions, filing their returns. Every year my father had asked casual questions. "What's a good credit score these days? How do those equity lines work? What do banks look at for approval?" I'd thought he was making conversation, learning, being interested in my work. He'd been taking notes. "Your brother's involvement appears secondary," Rebecca continued. "The cards are in your name, but used for his benefit. Your father likely promised him access to credit, told him it was handled, maybe even convinced him you'd agreed to help. So Gerald might not even know it's fraud. Possible. But your father absolutely knows." She tapped the HELIC document. "You don't forge a signature on a $68,000 loan by accident. You don't use someone's SSN without understanding exactly what you're doing. This is calculated identity theft with your father as the architect." I stared at the documents spread across her desk. My entire financial life, weaponized by the man who taught me to ride a bike. What are my options? Rebecca's expression was pure steel. "You can forgive them and accept personal liability for $202,000 in fraudulent debt. Or you can file criminal charges and let the justice system hold them accountable." She paused, then added the part that changed everything. "But Eva, if you don't report this, you're legally responsible. The debt collectors won't care that your family forged your signature. They'll come after you. Your assets. Your business. Everything you built." The choice wasn't really a choice at all. It was survival. I started at 2:17 p.m. in my car, parked in the garage beneath Rebecca's building. 37 minutes to dismantle 9 years of financial entanglement. I'd planned it like a tax strategy. Methodical, sequential, irreversible. Capital One first. The automated system recognized my voice. "I need to report identity theft and close this account immediately." The representative asked security questions I answered perfectly because they were, after all, my real answers. Account closed. Balance frozen. Fraud investigation initiated. 3 minutes.
Chase.
American Express. Discover. Bank of America. I moved through them like a surgical procedure, each call following the same script. My identity was stolen. I did not authorize this account. I'm filing a police report. Each representative expressed sympathy. Each one closed the account without hesitation. 14 minutes total. The joint checking account with my parents was next. The one I'd opened in 2019 because Mom said it would make family expenses easier. The account they deposited nothing into but withdrew from constantly. Current balance, $43,847. My money. My deposits. Their ATM card. I transferred $43,847 to my primary account. Then I removed both of them as authorized users. The system asked if I was sure. I clicked yes, without hesitation. The account balance showed 0. I scheduled it for closure in 30 days. 4 minutes. The savings account Gerald had somehow convinced me to open for emergencies was easier. $12,300 remaining from the $20,000 I'd seeded it with last year. Transferred. His access revoked. Account closed. 2 minutes. Then came the lake house. My property. My deed. My asset that I'd let them treat like their personal estate. I logged into the county tax portal where I'd set up automatic payments for property taxes. $8,400 quarterly. Next payment scheduled for Friday. I canceled the autopay. Then I went further. I canceled the homeowner's insurance autopay. The HOA dues. The utilities that somehow ended up in my name because it's just easier, Eva. Every automatic payment. Every safety net. Every invisible thread that kept their life comfortable.
Gone.
11 minutes. My phone started ringing at 2:41 p.m. Mom. I declined.
Dad.
Declined. Gerald. Declined. Text messages flooded in. Eva, something's wrong with the account. Why is the card declining? Call me now. I silenced my phone and made one final call. Western Regional Bank. The Hellick Department. I need to report fraudulent loan activity against my property. The representative's tone shifted immediately. Fraud investigations weren't simple. They required police reports, affidavits, documentation. I understand, I said. My attorney Rebecca Torres will be sending everything tomorrow. I'm formally disputing this debt and requesting immediate investigation. Ma'am, this will freeze the entire account. Your father won't have access to any remaining funds. That's correct. He shouldn't have had access to begin with. The loan was obtained through forged documents. Silence on the other end. Then, I'll escalate this to our fraud department immediately. 3 minutes. 37 minutes total. 9 years of financial enmeshment, systematically severed. Every account closed or secured. Every automatic payment stopped. Every access point eliminated. My phone showed 43 missed calls. I turned it face down and drove home. The demolition was complete. Now came the fallout. The first voicemail came at 3:42 p.m. Mom's voice, confused and slightly annoyed. Eva, honey, something's wrong with the grocery account. My card isn't working.
Can you call the bank?
Thanks, love you. By 4:15, the confusion had sharpened into irritation. Eva, seriously, I'm standing in Whole Foods with a full cart. This is embarrassing. Call me back. Gerald's text at 4:47 was pure entitlement. Yo, my card got declined at the gas station. Fix it. I watched the messages accumulate on my silenced phone like watching a pot boil. Each notification a small detonation in their carefully constructed reality. I didn't respond. There was nothing to say yet. The evidence needed to speak first. Dad's first call came at 5:23 p.m. His voice had the forced calm of a man trying to control a situation spinning away from him.
Eva.
We need to talk. Some accounts seem to have there's been some kind of mix-up. Call me back immediately. The word immediately cracked slightly at the end. By 6 p.m., the tone had shifted entirely. Mom's voice was shrill now, angry. What the hell is going on, Eva? The property tax payment bounced. The insurance company called. You're making us look like deadbeats. This isn't funny. Gerald left a voice memo at 6:34. Seriously, what's your problem? You're being psycho. Mom's freaking out. Just call back and stop being dramatic. I ordered Thai food and ate it slowly, methodically, while my phone vibrated itself across the coffee table. Each buzz another crack in their foundation. Each unanswered call another moment they had to sit with consequences they'd never anticipated. The turning point came at 8:47 p.m. Dad again. But this voice was different. Slurred. Desperate. The voice of a man 3 drinks past composure. You ungrateful little. He caught himself. Breathed. Started again. After everything we sacrificed for you. Everything. Do you have any idea what we gave up? Your mother worked 2 jobs when you were young. 2 jobs. And this is how you repay us? By cutting us off? By humiliating us? A pause. Ice clinking in a glass. Then the part that made my hands stop moving. That money was always meant to be shared. Family shares. That's what family does. You think you earned that all by yourself? We raised you. We made you who you are. Every dollar you have, you owe to us. Every single dollar. His voice broke. You were supposed to take care of us. That was the deal. That was always the deal. Another pause. Longer. When he spoke again, his voice was barely a whisper. We only took what was already ours. The voicemail ended. I sat in the silence of my apartment, chopsticks suspended over pad thai, and realized I'd just heard my father confess to identity theft. Not an apology. Not a plea for forgiveness. A justification. A defense of theft wrapped in entitlement and delusion. He genuinely believed my success belonged to him. That my money was his inheritance. That raising me had been an investment he was entitled to dividends on. I saved the voicemail and forwarded it to Rebecca Torres with a single line. Evidence for the file. Then I blocked all 3 of their numbers and poured myself a glass of wine. Tomorrow, they'd get the only response that mattered. Not a phone call. A certified letter. I want to pause here because I know some of you are feeling this in your bones right now. That moment when you realize the people who raised you see you as an investment, not a person. Drop a comment if this hits close to home. And subscribe because you deserve to see how this story ends. How your story can end differently. I arrived at the lake house at 10 a.m. Saturday with a leather portfolio and the kind of calm that only comes from having all the evidence. My car looked out of place in their circular driveway, modest and practical next to Gerald's Tesla and Dad's Silverado, both financed with my stolen credit. Mom opened the door with swollen eyes and a clenched jaw. It's about time. The living room felt different now that I knew the truth. The $4,800 sectional I'd loaned money for. The 75-inch television from their emergency last Christmas. The artwork Mom had charged to a card that wasn't hers. Everything in this room was a monument to my exploitation. They were arranged like a tribunal. Dad in his recliner, arms crossed. Mom on the sofa, tissue in hand. Gerald sprawling in the armchair, phone face up on his lap, one leg bouncing with irritation. What's this about, Eva? Dad's voice was steady now. Sober. Strategic. Your mother's been crying for 2 days. I set my portfolio on the coffee table and remained standing. This is about $514,448 in combined theft, fraud, and identity crimes committed against me over 9 years. The silence was absolute. That's insane, Gerald said. We're family. You can't steal from family. You're right. Family doesn't steal. I opened the portfolio and removed the first document. But you did. Capital One Platinum. Open January 2022 in my name. Current balance, $23,400. I never applied for this card. I never authorized Gerald as a user. I placed it on the table. That's identity theft. Federal crime. 5 years maximum sentence. Mom's tissue dropped. Eva, sweetheart, this is Chase Sapphire Reserve, American Express Blue, Discover, Bank of America Premium. I laid each statement down like a prosecutor presenting evidence. 5 fraudulent accounts. Combined balance $89,700. All opened using my social security number, my employment information, my credit history. Dad's face had gone pale. Now wait, just a Western Regional Bank. Home equity line of credit. $68,000. I placed the HELOC documents on top of the pile.
Forget signature.
My property. Your loan. Gerald's Tesla. The last document landed with finality. Gerald's leg stopped bouncing. This property. I gestured around the room. The lake house you call home. The address on your driver's licenses. I own it. The deed is in my name. Has been since 2019. You've been living in my house, rent-free, while using my forged credit to renovate it. Mom made us sound like a trapped animal. You're our daughter. And you're criminals. I kept my voice level. Clinical. I've filed fraud reports with every credit card company. I've contacted Western Regional Bank. I have a meeting with the police detective on Monday morning. My attorney has prepared a comprehensive case for the district attorney. You wouldn't. Dad's voice was barely a whisper. I already have. I removed the final document. But I'm giving you one choice. Option A. Full repayment of $514,448 within 72 hours. Certified funds. Plus you vacate this property within 30 days. In exchange, I don't press criminal charges. That's insane, Gerald shouted. We don't have that kind of. Option B. My voice cut through his protest like ice. I proceed with criminal prosecution. Identity theft.
Fraud. Forgery.
Dad, you're looking at federal charges. Gerald, you're an accessory. Mom, you benefited from fraudulent proceeds. The district attorney is very interested in family fraud cases. They send a message. Dad stood up, his face red. After everything we did for you. You stole from me. 3 words. Final. You forged my signature. You committed crimes. And now you pay one way or another. I placed a business card on top of the documents. Rebecca Torres's contact information. You have until Monday at 5 p.m. to choose. Call my attorney.
Not me.
I'm done being your king. I walked to the door, then turned back. They sat frozen, staring at the pile of evidence like it was a bomb. One more thing. The property taxes are due next month. The insurance lapses in 3 weeks. The utilities will shut off when the auto pay fails. This house costs $6,000 a month to maintain. Without me, you can't afford to live here. I opened the door. 72 hours. Choose wisely. The door clicked shut behind me with the same finality as the spreadsheet I'd closed 4 nights ago. I didn't look back. The Facebook post went live at 3:47 p.m. Sunday. Mom's account. A photo of the 4 of us from last Christmas, strategically cropped so my forced smile looked genuine. Heartbroken doesn't even begin to describe it. After everything we've sacrificed, after raising her with nothing but love, our daughter has turned her back on family. Money changes people. Pride comes before the fall. Praying for her soul. #family first, #heartbroken, #toxic children. 43 comments within an hour. Aunt Linda. I always knew that girl was cold. Mom's book club friend. You gave her everything and this is how she repays you? Shameful. Gerald's high school buddy. Sorry, bro. Family should stick together. Gerald's post came next. A selfie in front of a lake house. Sunset golden behind him. Expression wounded. Can't believe my own sister is trying to kick us out of our family home over money. Guess blood doesn't mean what it used to. Some people forget where they came from. 218 likes. The comments were worse. Sue her. She sounds like a narcissist.
Cut her off, man.
Toxic is toxic. Dad stayed off social media.
He was smarter than that.
But Mom's posting became pathological. Monday morning, a photo of her childhood pictures of me. I held her when she had nightmares. I sacrificed my career for her. Now she won't even return my calls. Tuesday afternoon, a vague post about betrayal and scripture. Wednesday, some children see their parents as ATMs, then get angry when the account runs dry. Projection is real. The irony was almost beautiful. My phone exploded with messages from relatives I hadn't spoken to in years. Second cousins, Dad's college roommate, Mom's yoga instructor. All of them with opinions about my character, my choices, my soul. None of them asking for my side. None of them wondering why I'd taken such drastic action. I blocked them all and focused on the documentation that actually mattered. The eviction notice was served Wednesday at 2 p.m. 30 days to vacate the property. Legal, binding, unemotional. Rebecca had prepared it perfectly. The process server reported that Mom had torn it up on the doorstep, then collected the pieces when she realized it was legally served regardless. Thursday brought the fraud investigation letters. Capital One's forensics department had confirmed the signature discrepancies. Chase had flagged the applications as suspicious. Western Regional Bank had frozen the HELOC and launched a criminal inquiry. The paper trail was tightening like a noose. Friday's mail brought the detective's official request for an interview. Dad was scheduled for Monday at 9 a.m. Gerald for Tuesday. Mom had been listed as a witness. The county prosecutor's office had added a stamp, case under review for criminal charges. But online, I was the villain. Mom posted a photo of the eviction notice Friday night with the caption, "This is what greed looks like. My own daughter is making us homeless. Over money. Money. 347 shares." I sat in my apartment watching my character assassination unfold in real time. Strangers who'd never met me were calling me soulless, narcissistic, ungrateful, a monster who'd abandoned her loving family over a misunderstanding. Not one person asked about the forged signatures, the fraudulent accounts, the stolen identity, the $514,448 in documented theft. They only saw the narrative my mother crafted, the evil daughter and the innocent victims. Rebecca called at 8:23 p.m. Don't respond. Don't defend yourself. Don't engage. They're building a public sympathy case because they know the legal case is unwinnable. Let them perform. The district attorney doesn't care about Facebook likes. I knew she was right. But watching people who shared my DNA destroy my reputation to avoid accountability for felonies felt like a different kind of theft. They'd stolen my money. Now they were stealing my story. But stories, like spreadsheets, eventually reveal the truth.
And the truth had receipts.
My birthday fell on a Tuesday. 34 years old. The age when most people have stopped seeking their parents' approval and started building lives that don't require permission. I was late to that particular milestone by about a decade. There were no calls from my family. No passive-aggressive Facebook posts wishing me well while subtly martyring themselves. They were too busy with their legal defense. Dad had hired an attorney who specialized in white-collar crime. Gerald was claiming he'd been manipulated, that he didn't know the cards were fraudulent. Mom was still posting on social media, but the engagement had dropped. People were starting to ask questions. I spent the morning in a conference room at Rebecca's office, signing formation documents. The Reynolds Financial Autonomy Foundation, a nonprofit dedicated to helping victims of family financial abuse, education programs, legal assistance funds, resources for people trapped in the same cycle I'd finally escaped. You're funding this with how much? Rebecca had asked when I first proposed it. $5 million to start. More as it grows. She looked at me for a long moment. Most people who escape financial abuse want nothing to do with money for a while. Most people don't have $52 million to work with. The money doesn't own me. It never did. That was their delusion, not mine. The foundation's mission statement was 3 sentences long. Family love should never come with a price tag. Financial abuse is still abuse. You deserve autonomy, dignity, and freedom. The website went live at 2 p.m. I'd hired a designer who understood trauma-informed messaging. Soft colors. Clear language.
No guilt. No shame.
Just resources and the radical idea that you could love your family and still protect yourself from them. By 4 p.m., the contact form had 17 submissions. People telling stories that mirrored mine. Parents who'd stolen Social Security numbers. Siblings who'd maxed out joint credit cards. Grandparents who'd taken out loans in their grandchildren's names. Each story a variation on the same theme: love weaponized as obligation, family weaponized as debt. I read every single one. The foundation received 17 submissions in 2 hours. 17 people ready to reclaim their financial autonomy. If this story moved you, if Eva's journey resonated, subscribe for more stories about people who chose themselves. Because there are thousands more stories like this. And they all deserve to be heard. At 6 p.m., I drove to the lake house one final time. Not to confront anyone. They'd vacated the previous Friday, moving into a rental Dad's attorney had helped them secure. The house was empty now, echoing and hollow, without their presence filling it. I walked through the rooms, slowly. The living room where I'd delivered the ultimatum. The kitchen where Mom had planned renovations with my money. The deck where we'd celebrated holidays I'd funded. Every corner held a memory of my own diminishment. But the house was just a house. Wood and glass and a mortgage I'd pay off by next quarter. It held no power over me anymore. I locked the door and drove to my favorite restaurant. Not the one where they'd handed me that $4,200 bill. Somewhere small, quiet, where nobody knew my story or needed anything from me. I ordered pasta and a glass of wine and sat by the window watching people walk past. Normal people with normal families. Or maybe they weren't normal. Maybe they were all performing their own versions of survival, their own quiet rebellions against expectations that threatened to consume them. My phone buzzed. An email from the foundation's general inbox. A woman in Colorado. Her mother had taken out student loans in her name. She was drowning in debt she'd never incurred and didn't know where to start. I forwarded it to the legal coordinator I'd hired and added a note. Priority case. Full support. The waiter brought my pasta. I took a bite and realized something I'd never fully grasped before. Freedom wasn't just about having money. It was about choosing what the money served. For 9 years, I'd let it serve their comfort while sacrificing my own peace. Now it served something bigger. Every person the foundation helped was a small correction to the ledger. Not revenge. Restoration.
My phone buzzed again.
Rebecca. DA's office formally charged your father with identity theft and fraud. Gerald's pleading out. Your mother's cooperating. It's over. I typed back. Thank you. But it wasn't really over. Endings were always beginnings in disguise. My family had taught me that betrayal was always possible. The foundation would teach other people that recovery was always possible too. I finished my pasta, paid my own bill, and drove home through the city lights. 34 years old. Finally free. Finally choosing myself. The best birthday gift I'd ever received was the one I'd given myself. Permission to walk away from people who saw me as a resource instead of a person. And permission, I was learning, was the first step toward peace.